Konnichiwa to everybody, and arigato for joining this session. Today we will discuss about the plastic waste challenge. You see how the title of this session is Plastic Planet Innovative Solutions for a Cleaner Tomorrow. This session is part of the Circular Economy Days that are being organized here in the Expo, at the Expo in Osaka, and they are organized by the European Circular Economy Stakeholders Platform. You can check here all the programs, all the conferences and discussions that are taking place during these 3 days. My name is Maria Vera. I work as a Senior Technical Manager at EURIC. EURIC is the European Recycling Industry Confederation, so we represent the recycling industry in Brussels. And I'm very passionate about this topic, about plastic waste and plastic recycling, so it will be my pleasure and honor to moderate this session. Today we will have 2 panel discussions. The first one is going to focus on all the legislative developments and policy tools that are in place to reduce plastic pollution. And then we will have experts that will showcase their innovative solutions to curb plastic pollution, to reduce virgin plastic consumption, and to make plastics more circular. So without further delay, I will invite the first panelist to join the stage. We have Maria Nicolopoulou. She's a member of the European Economy and Social Committee. Welcome, Maria. We have also Sheila Agrawal Khan. She's UNEP Director in the Industry and Economy Division. And we also have Takahiro Katsurawa, Mayor of the Kameoka city in Japan. Thank you so much for joining. And I will. Yeah, it's working. So thank you so much for joining this discussion. We have a quite international panel, and when I think about plastic waste and in the international scope, it comes to my mind immediately the Global Plastic Treaty. As you know, this summer, in last August in Geneva, delegates from 183 countries meet to discuss, to finalize a global plastic treaty to end with plastic pollution, but unfortunately without success. So I wanted to ask you, what are your views on this international legally binding agreement, and what is needed to find a solution with all the countries, an agreement at international level? Is that a question for everybody? So feel free to.
はい、亀岡市長の桂川です。亀岡はですね、2020年にですね、亀岡市内の使い捨てプラスチックレジ袋をですね、もうなくすという条例を作りですね、2021年からそれを施行しました。日本で初めての取り組みということでありますけれども、その結果ですね、すごくゴミが減った。特に亀岡のですね、保津川下りという観光河川がありますが、そこのゴミが本当に格段に減ったんですね。ということは、制度を変えるということは大変大事だということなんですね。ちょうど2019年に G20 の大阪の会議がありましたが、そこでは大阪ブルーオーシャンビジョンが提唱されました。それはですね、新たな海洋プラスチックをもう2050年までにもう新しい そういう廃棄されるものをなくしていくという目指すものであります。でそういうものが着実に、実行されればですね、今の、プラスチックの課題は解決できると思っています。そういう面では国際的なそういう基準と規制が私はあるべきだと思っています。
Thank you. So yes, there was a lot of disappointment when the plastics negotiations didn't result in a treaty. However, from the discussions, there were many areas of convergence. Product design was coming together. There were discussions on which types of unnecessary single uses, but there were also other areas of divergence. But we left the meeting where member states really wanted to see a treaty come and wanted to continue the discussions. And so I think as member states decide on their next steps, they will look to seeing how do they come together on areas where they can agree would really reduce plastic pollution. I could go into more detail, but maybe I'll wait for the next.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I think we all share or most of us share a feeling of disappointment. No, how is it possible if we see the urgency, if we see the data, that once again the profits of a smaller group is going in detriment of the gains of everyone, no? But if we analyze it rationally, it's a very complicated situation. I mean, if I'm having trouble negotiating with my boyfriend at home on how we will recycle, with what kind of plastics are we be using, and how to organize our home, imagine how countries with conflicting interests and a lack of trust, because some countries just don't trust each other to get to agreements, how complicated it is, no? And even for us as civil society, no, I don't think we even have a common way on exactly what the path should be. I mean, thinking and playing a little bit devil's advocate, no? Should we go for a complete ban of fossil fuel plastics? Yes, of course, the answer is clearly yes, no, among each other. But what about all the countries that they base their full economies on these kind of products? If they don't see a viable economic way out of what they're doing and a timeline on this, they will never agree to that. Or if we talk about reducing the single-use plastics, no, not about banning it. Okay, of course, this is one of the highest scales of hierarchy in the circular economy, where in a context of circular economy, the best value is reduced. But on a business side, if at some point we don't have enough plastic to recycle, who would want to invest on recycling plastics on the long term? So it's a very complicated question. This is why I think that the focus should be to keep on discussing. I think it was a good step that they at least acknowledged they came to a common conclusion that, okay, we have a problem, let's sit together and negotiate. I mean, coming from the civil society, we know that changes take a lot of time, baby steps, unless there is a big devastating disaster that it's changing the world. But I would urge us to be optimistic, no? It's step by step, little by little, and forcing and trying to negotiate common solutions towards a common direction.
Thank you so much for your answer. And here already we can see how there are some ideas that are common to some countries, but of course when the ambition is at a global scale, it's much more difficult. We mentioned here that in the Kameoka city there is a ban of single-use plastic. At European level, there's also a regulation on the single-use plastic. And Maria, I know that you have been working on this topic, so could you tell us a bit what is your opinion on how we can tackle the challenge of single-use plastic waste, and also what are the lessons learned that we have in Europe, because this regulation came into force in 2019, so we have some years of experience. What are your views on this?
I think there's always a mix of different solutions. Now, we started by banning single-use plastics when there were other alternatives viable that they would meet the demand. So strong legislation is always key to move forward. But we also need to create different financial tools to support innovation, to support precisely upscaling prototypes and innovative products before they enter in the market. And by the way, I'm going to be advertising the platform. There are in our toolbox section at the platform several ideas and tools on how to finance circular solutions. Then it's important also to work with the consumer awareness and giving them access to reliable information on the traceability of the products, on if they're plastic-free or if they're recyclable. It's important for them to be able to make a correct and at least informed decisions. So labeling and certifications, I think they are important tools that they can help us move forward. Now, this means that we need data collection and transparency in the whole value chain to be able to give this information to the people. And also at the platform, we have different tools that they can help projects to evaluate how circular they are. So that's a gain. And finally, share best practices. We are in a transition phase. Nobody has the solution for everything. So first of all, it's important to get together and get inspired from different ideas and build bridges and collaborations, and especially to get together and find common solutions in the obstacles that they're not allowing us to move forward. But this, we need different voices to be on the table and discuss and negotiate and think of how to move forward.
Thank you, Maria. This regulation you were mentioning also try to reduce and with recycling content targets, but we also see how sometimes it is complicated to make the market for recycling materials successful. And here I wanted to ask you, Sheila, what are the challenges to overcome for a successful recycling market?
Yeah, so many companies have said to us that they put in place, post-consumer plastic resin targets into new products. And the challenge was they said they couldn't get enough plastic PCR, basically, into from recycling. At the end of the day, recycling can be a good investment, but it needs both the supply side and the demand side. And so many companies have said to us, unless governments put in place a target that all products have to have a certain amount of post-consumer resin into new products, it cannot make recycling a profitable venture. And so if they had a target, it would send a market signal to them, and it would also increase the investment in recycling, because then the recycler would know that they have a guaranteed off-taker because it's required by government.
Yeah, I fully also agree with that, because we have seen how recycling content targets are so important to boost the demand for recycled materials. I think is one of the policy tools that is most successful at European level, but it can be implemented and is already being implemented also in other countries to send the sign that there's going to be demand for recycled materials, so companies will invest in recycling infrastructure. But apart from that, if we think that how to we place, let's say, the obligation of manufacturers to buy recycling materials to make recycling a profitable business as well, a viable business. But we also have the consumer's role, and I think here we have an example of the zero waste city. So I wanted to ask you, Takahiro, what can consumers do to tackle also this challenge, and how, as your role as a mayor, how can governments support citizens in reducing plastic consumption, reusing more plastic products, and recycling and sorting and recycling better?
えそうですね、プラスチックっていうのは大変素晴らしい製品だと思ってます。まあ、軽くていろんな形に変わって、そしてなおかつ安いという、まあ、その利点が結果的にプラスチックを使い捨てにしてしまっているというのが今の現状じゃないかと。そういう面ではこのプラスチックをまあ、リサイクルしていくためには自治体の役割はすごく大きいと思っています。特に生活者である住民市民から出るゴミをですね、資源に変えていくためには、まあ、適正な形で、まあ、処理できる体制を作ることが必要だと思います。亀岡のことを言うとですね、亀岡の市民が出すプラスチックゴミはすごくきれいだというふうに言われています。匂いもあまりしないと。だから実はトヨタが亀岡のプラスチックを使って、まあ、自動車の内装品を作りたいというふうに言っていただいて、今その取り組みが始まってきているという状況。そういう面ではプラスチックは素晴らしい資源になり得る可能性があるということですから、その可能性を高めるためにどのような、まあ、処理の仕方、また分別をして適正に排出できる環境を作るか、それはまさに自治体がしっかり住民との議論の中で、まあ、ルールを作り、そしてそれを、まあ、実施していただくことが必要だというふうに思っています。
Thank you so much. We have a very good example of how we can involve consumers also in the discussion on how to tackle this challenge. I will also just to a bit of to conclude the panel discussion. We will also maybe have some time for 1 or 2 questions after. But if you have just a wish you will see to see in the future at international scale, at the global scale, to tackle the waste the challenge of plastic waste, being in terms of reducing the use of virgin plastics, on reusing more products, or recycling more and making plastics more circular. If you see one specific objective or policy tool that should be developed, what would be in your opinion? Just to conclude as a final message. You can, go ahead, Sheila.
So I think that we're seeing a lot of governments interested in product design. And many companies saying we want some kind of guidance to be able to innovate about products that are designed for reuse and designed for recycling, so that the product stays in the economy as long as possible, and that at the end of its life, because after maybe 15, 20 uses, it can be recycled. And a lot of products today can't be recycled. Plastic packaging is one of the biggest sources of plastic pollution, and it's beyond even the plastic bags, right? Anything you buy in a supermarket today has a plastic container around it. It's used maybe for a month, like cooking oil, shampoos and all, and then that bottle and container is dumped. But it could be in a reusable format where the consumer can get a deposit back, and then the packaging can be reused and continue circulating in the economy. And so beyond the recycling end, product design requirements would be very important to move away from unnecessary single uses and keep resources in the economy.
All right, thank you so much. I always say that if you want to improve the output, focus on the input, which means focus on increasing collection, like the deposit return system, like to give an incentive to consumers to increase collection, and also the design for recycling, because if you have better quality in the input, then you will have better high quality recycling materials. So I think this indeed two important aspects to take into account. And Maria, where is your final?
My final, I was triggered actually with what the mayor said. It is true, we are demonizing the material instead of demonizing how we treat the material as humans. So it's not the actual plastic what is the problem, it's how we deal with it, no, in the end. And I mean, it's clear that plastic is not, it affects business, it affects the economy, it affects the health of the people, and it has other societal impacts. So I would really wish to see it more holistically on how to handle these situations, because also behind everything that we do with plastics, either reducing it or building it in a different way, we have companies with people that they're working there, which eventually are the consumers. So if we don't think on how to transition fairly for everyone, so that we can still keep people in the jobs or people having incomes, no, even in these affected industries, we will create other problems that we will need to use. So really focus on how to achieve a just transition for everyone, for the environment, but also for the people.
Any final message that you want to share? How do you see the evolution of the city?
日本の企業でユニクロというで、ファッション、そこの企業は実は亀岡のお店からプラスチックレジ袋をなくして紙袋を有料化し、そして自動会計にされたんですね。それが今日本全体のすべてのお店でそれがベースとなって取り組んでいただいています。大抵海外でも同じような形でユニクロは取り組んでいるんだろうと思います。グローバル企業としてやはり今の世界の課題を解決するために企業の努力というものも大変素晴らしいと思いますし、そのことが企業の価値を作っていくんじゃないかなというふうに思っています。そういうことをもっとアピールしながら、より多くの事業者がやっぱり地球にとって自分たちがやっている活動がより素晴らしいものだということを認識できるようなそういう環境を作っていくことが必要だというふうに思っています。そういう面ではそれこそ2050年には海の魚よりもプラスチックごみが多くなってしまうと言われているような現状の中で、そのことを想像しながら、自らから何ができるかということを考えてアクションを起こしていくことが私は必要じゃないかなと思っています。そういう面では議論をし尽くしながら、それぞれの現状を多くの皆さんに理解していただきながら、そして行動を促すような取り組みにつなげていけることが必要だと思っています。
Thank you so much. I think we will have the opportunity to give the floor to the audience if you have one question.
Thank you very much for the panel discussion. My name is Tomoko Otake. I'm a reporter from the Japan Times in Tokyo. I have one question to everyone. Basically, the global plastic treaty negotiations are at a deadlock now. But I heard from the panelists that we need to make baby steps, first baby steps to make improvements. What, in your mind, what would be the first baby step that you can suggest to the negotiators on the global stage? Thank you.
So I think at the last negotiation round, there were actually quite a few areas where governments were actually on the same page. And at the end of the day, all treaties have to start somewhere. And so I would encourage those governments to come together and to see how can they agree on areas where there's convergence, where they have, as they call it, red lines. How can these red lines be talked about in an open discourse where they can really think creatively about what to do with it? Product design was an area which many of them talked about. They also talked about chemicals in products where there is an exposure and where there is a significant exposure, for example, in food contact material or say in toys and all, where kids are touching plastic toys and there could be that chemical coming off onto the skin of a child, so the exposure could be high. They talked about some single uses that are unnecessary, which nationally they have already banned. And so there are areas, financing they're talking about. So I would urge them to come together and think about innovative ways to deal with these before going into the next negotiation round.
Yes, thank you. I think mostly the red lines and the red tapes have to do with how to transition, precisely. I mean, I'm really insisting on that because for me it's clear that the way forward is a just transition, how to make sure that we do not demolish a system and we don't know, we create new problems, especially for the communities and the industry and for everyone, while solving other problems, no? So how to get this right and how to fit together this puzzle, this is the challenge.
そういう面では各国のですね、やっぱり自治体、一番住民に近いところがしっかりとそのなんて言いますかね、そのリサイクルを含めた取り組みを進めていくような、そういうシステムがいるなと思っています。日本で言えばですね、亀岡がやってきたようなプラスチック、ゼロ宣言のようなことを含めてですね、我々は今まで自分たちが取り組んできたことを横の自治体に広げながら、少しでもそういう理解を広げていき、やっぱ小さなことでも前へ前進していくことが最終的に世界に広がっていくんじゃないかなと思います。そうしないといっぺんに物事を変えるってことは難しいと思います。なぜかといえば、どこの国もそれぞれの発展過程があって、日本でも大昔はですね、環境問題でいろんな問題が出てきた、そういうものを解決して今の社会があるわけで、まだまだ発展途上国ではそこまで行ってないところがある。そういうところにじゃあ今先進国の思いだけを押し付けるっていうのは大変難しいと思いますから、まずは我々が実践をしていくようなことを進めていくことが必要だと思っています。
Thank you. Any other question from the audience?
Thank you so much. My name is Francisco Vera. I am a climate activist, and I have followed the negotiations, the plastic negotiations in Geneva. I think most of governments and member states, as well as civil society organizations, actually agree in something in that we have to tackle this problem, which is actually something that goes beyond environmental and planetary health, but also human health, no? And that implies banning some chemicals in plastic, no? And trying to cut production, no? Nevertheless, during these negotiations and during many other processes, international and multilateral environmental related processes as the UNFCCC, we see a lot of influence from, for example, fossil fuels lobbies, no? Trying to hinder somehow these negotiations, no? So what would be your message for those members of these and representatives of these lobbies to simply go to the negotiations, but in a more collaborative and collective manner to contribute to them and not to hinder, let's say, the progress in these negotiations? Of course, this is a collective issue that must to be addressed in a collective manner also, but we see that not everyone agrees in this. So this would be my question for all of you, I think. But mainly for Sheila, no? That I think, no? But yes, for everyone, actually.
Sure. So, we've had lots of discussions with the polymer industry, and many of the polymer producer companies say to us they're ready to disclose the additives that are put into plastics to give them their functionality. And they've already established a database, a pilot, and they're ready to have others start to work with it and to keep populating it. So it's one step towards, disclosure. The second, they tell us they have no objection to looking at product design requirements, both product design for reuse and product design for better recycling. So as I said, the treaty needs to start somewhere, and maybe, these are some of the steps that at least some of the actors are saying they're interested in, and I would say, okay, maybe it's a first step.
So for me, in every negotiation, you have a power game. And we see that players are more influential than others because they have more resources to throw into lobbying, or they manage to open more spaces. So it's important to realize these power games and to have, especially the country's commitment, to involve more stakeholders precisely in the negotiations and in the setting up of the solutions, but not meaningfully involving them, not just having them there to listen to them and then don't pick up the ideas of the rest of the stakeholders and the civil society. But this is why we're insisting so much of having diverse voices and diverse interests on the table with the same level of influence, so that we can really have common solutions that they meet everyone's expectations. And maybe it will take a bit longer to reach an agreement, but once the agreement is reached, it's more steady. So bring more people to the table.
そうですね。やはりそういう会議をもっともっとやりながら、やはり人と人との交流、コミュニケーションを取っていくということが、基本かなと思っています。もちろん人にはですね、それぞれ思いが違いますし、国によってもその経済状況や社会の状況が違うということから、それを全て受け入れないこともたくさんあると思います。しかしそこはですね、やはり交流を図りながら、こういう議論をしっかりしていきながらですね、お互いを理解し、そして少しでも前進できるような方向に進めていくという理念をですね、示していくことが必要かなと私は思っています。
Thank you. And one last question. I think we have time for the last one.
Yes, Maria, for you, please. So I am Felipe from UNEP, from the UNEP International Environmental Technology Center. This is the only UN office in Osaka. So we are very proud to receive the Expo and the EC events here. And we are a technical unit within UNEP that is responsible for waste management, technical input, and controlling or managing some of UNEP projects and activities. And I have one comment, one question. The comment that we likewise to have a strong commitment on the waste on the gender portfolio within the waste stream. So we dedicate a good part of our portfolio to understand the waste, the gender nuances in the waste sector. So how women suffer more the impacts of waste mismanagement, how is the women waste workers being treated, how fair is the wage distribution, how is equitable or the balance of decision power regarding men and women in the waste sector. So this is for your information, and I'm happy to follow up on this with you later. But my question goes to informal sector. When we go to Africa, when we go to Southern Asia, informal sector is a bottleneck, because from one side we wanted to address the waste mismanagement, but from the other side, informal sector is often responsible for 80 and sometimes 100% of waste collection and treatment in some countries. And particularly plastics, when you address plastic, and if you segregate plastic and you take plastic off the municipal solid waste stream, you are taking the most valuable waste for the waste pickers, so it's very important component for their incomes, for their survival. So I wanted to know 2 or 3 concrete examples of good practices that you know that have been done somewhere, maybe in Europe or in other continents, that can address the integration of informal workers, the consideration of their rights, of their opinions, but on the other side that you can promote a better waste management where everything is integrated into a formal system. Thank you.
Congratulations, first of all, on your work. I do want to follow up on what you do with women. It's a very sensitive issue. And actually, the pickers were one of the things that most shocked me coming from Europe when I realized how different we are in this sense, no, the European countries and the rest of the world. To me, going to the source of the problem would be formalizing the jobs directly, not trying to improve an informal waste picking, but directly formalize it. But to formalize it, you have to reconstruct the system. No, the municipalities there need to organize the separation and the collection and then the handling. But I sincerely don't see any other way forward apart from formalizing and organizing an efficient system for everyone.
So there is a really interesting example that I just heard from in the last INC meeting from India, where waste pickers were actually involved in the reuse infrastructure. And so waste pickers had organized themselves in one state in India to help with the deposit return system and actually to wash and provide the infrastructure for washing the containers and getting it back to the brands. So it was an interesting way in which you could see a just transition where waste pickers were actually coming further upstream into a reuse model with better and safer jobs than just only at the downstream end of things.
Thank you so much. I think we can conclude here. We start the conversation in a bit, sharing a bit of frustration because of the global treaty negotiations didn't go as we wish. But I think we end up finding some solutions or some proposals like targeting product design, the example of the single-use plastics, also with the example of the Kameoka city where they banned the use of single plastic and they have different projects and they are willing to share these best practices to other cities around and to other neighborhoods. I think this is how we need to keep working together, increasing, let's say, these exchanges at international level to find what are the solutions, to combine others that are not part of the same strategy. And that's it. Let's keep working together to make the circular economy for plastics a reality. Thank you so much for joining us today in the panel discussion. Thank you. With the mindset, we have a discussion about focus on legal instruments or policy, and we are going to have experts that are going to show their solutions, how they are working with different projects to curb plastic pollution. We have Dr. Yasuhiko, sorry for my mispronunciation, Hota, that he is research director and principal policy analyst for the Sustainable Consumption and Production Unit at IGES, the Institute for Global Environment Strategies. Welcome. We have also Monty Saimus, global director of public affairs policy and blue finance at the Ocean Cleanup. And then we also have Momona Otsuka. She is the Chief Environment Officer at Kamikatsu. Thank you so much for joining us today. First of all, I would like to start the discussion giving you the opportunity to tell us a bit more about your projects, on the solutions you are proposing to tackle the plastic waste challenge.
Yeah, thank you for this question. So I'm from the Institute for Global Environment Strategies, and I've been engaged in the policy development support in collaboration with the United Nations Environment Program and the other international organizations, especially focusing on the ASEAN countries and South Asia. And what we see as a marine plastic issues and the plastic pollution issue, it was when the discussion started around 2016 or so. We felt it was kind of the effort to mainstream circular economy and one of the entry point to mainstream circular economy. And so that was our observation, that actually when the, for example, famous academic paper like a Jambeck's paper pointed out about the crisis of this marine plastic issue, that it's point out the problem is caused by land-based sources and lack of the proper waste management system, especially in emerging economy and developing countries. So we supported these countries, especially those ASEAN countries, South Asian countries, for developing their national action plan for the marine plastics. That was one of the things we did. But by supporting marine plastic related national action plan development, we identify several challenges. One of the challenges is, although central government made a clear policy, usually when you consider the real action should come from the local government. As Mayor of Kamioka City mentioned, the role of the local government is very important, but somehow the central government, local government collaboration was not so well established, especially in emerging and then developing countries. That was one of the challenges we faced. So we tried to encourage some capacity development, but I can explain that later. The other thing is monitoring. This should come as a kind of evidence-based policy making, and the monitoring should be there, but monitoring capacity as a problem. And recently the situation is a bit changing. Like we have this modeling system developed, and also like utilization of digital technology is very getting popular. So the well-populated big cities tend to have a good evidence or science-based planning, but the problem getting more and more on the rural cities. So smaller cities is a very important player, but somehow lack of the capacity. That is what we observed. And also the final point we observed by supporting National Action Plan is that it's very important to have multi-stakeholder partnership. Multi-stakeholder partnership is business, academia, government collaboration and communication. And if you focus only on the environmental policy, the government tend to focus only on the regulative discussion. It's not going to, how to say, respond to this mainstreaming of the circular economy. So you need to consider what kind of new business model, new service model is more better for the less plastic pollution. And also some academia should suggest what is a risky product, what is less risky alternative. That kind of discussion should be there. So those are the points that we thought important during our involvement to the National Action Plan development.
Thank you. I'm Momona from Kamikatsu Town, which is the smallest town in Shikoku Island, Tokushima. I actually prepared a presentation PowerPoint. Thank you. Okay. So I would like to share the example of our town, and Kamikatsu became the first municipality in Japan that declared zero waste in 2003, which has now attracted global attention. And instead of using garbage trucks, we have only one waste station, which is in the middle picture. This is located in our facility, Kamikatsu Zero Waste Center. And the residents came here by their own car and separate waste into 43 different categories. And instead of using, as a result, the amount of waste generated in Kamikatsu has been reduced to half the national average, and the recycling rate has reached 80% now. So when it comes to tackling plastic waste, in particular, we focus on two main solutions. First is recycling, second is reducing plastic using. So first, recycling. Through separation, plastics are not incinerated in Kamikatsu. So each household separate plastic, wash, dry, and bring it to the waste station, which is like the picture in the left. Yeah, I think you will all surprised, but the left picture is our daily scene in Kamikatsu. So residents cooperate to recycle, and for example, packaging and caps go into the plastic stream, and PET bottles into their own category, and other contaminated or non-plastic packaging are converted into funeral resources. And for reducing single-use plastics, local shops collaborate to encourage bulk sales. About 13 shops cooperate, and shopping with personal reusable bags, which is shown on the middle picture. So residents who take part in these activities receive points called chiritsumo pointo, and which can be later exchanged to local vouchers or to eco-friendly items. So these becomes their motivations to participate in these activities. So in these ways, the community, both residents and local businesses, work together toward reducing and recycling plastic in Kamikatsu. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Maria. And let me start by thanking ECSP and the EU for the opportunity. I'm Monty Simons from the Ocean Cleanup. The Ocean Cleanup is a science and technology-focused nonprofit. We're based in Rotterdam, the Netherlands, and I have more than 200 colleagues, the vast majority of whom are data scientists, engineers, and hydrologists. And we have a singular mission to rid the world's oceans of plastic. We do this by working to clean up the legacy plastic in the ocean already, and then do what we call turn off the tap of new plastic entering the ocean. We do this not only for the environmental and marine benefit, but we also do it for the economic and health outcomes. In fact, we spent a lot of time focusing on impact measurements about, for example, the impact of plastic aggregation around mangrove root systems, which can, when removed, can allow those mangroves to be very healthy and alleviate the need for artificial flood protection control programs, etc. We have two sort of solutions since we're focused on innovation. We have a very large ocean-based system. It's the only one in the world. Ocean plastic aggregates in what are called 5 gyres. So we work in the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, which is halfway between the state of California and the state of Hawaii. And we collect, for example, in 2024, we ran over 100 cleanup missions in that ocean patch. We also have a series of river-based interception systems. We call them interceptors. We have 6 different variants of these solutions, primarily because rivers and watersheds behave very differently. So again, as a science and technology-focused organization, we spend a lot of time understanding river flows, tidal movements, seasonality, whether the river is being used commercially. And for that reason, we have 6 different sort of solutions which are sort of customized and implemented. We're proud to have implemented more than 20 of these systems in rivers in 9 countries around the world. And this past summer, we announced what we call our 30 cities strategy, which has an aim to reduce 1/3 of plastic entering the ocean by 2030. We've identified the 30 top, if you like, or the 30 urban watersheds that contribute most ocean plastic around the world. And so we will actively deploy our solutions in these cities in the next 5 years ahead. The other important thing to note about our solutions or the innovation is that we understand we work as part of a value chain and a community of sort of solution providers. So our expertise is understanding the behavior, movement, and removal of plastic from water. But then we depend very carefully and very heavily upon close-knit partners that understand how to responsibly handle the plastic once it's taken outside of the water. In very select instances, we actually get involved in what we call valorization, so taking advantage, making new products or new uses of the plastic that's been removed from the water. We recently, for example, worked with a musical group Coldplay, which is a longtime supporter of the ocean cleanup, and we took plastic that was removed from the river in the Mateus River in Guatemala, and they made a limited edition LP using that plastic. So in general, we understand that, again, we sort of work in a community of solution providers. We're proud of our sort of very focused scientific and technological approach to it. But we also understand that we are, in some sense, buying the world some time, right? If I use a medical analogy, we're trying to keep the size of the tumor or the infection sort of at a controllable size. Well, the upstream and other policy decisions which actually create the real solution to the plastic problem can be implemented.
Thank you. Very interesting initiatives, all of them different from the research area, from the local governments, and also organizations to rid the oceans of plastics. I think we have touched upon many different topics here. One of the topics that was mentioned is how to what happens with those communities or those countries that don't have the capacity to develop this recycling or collection infrastructure or the policy. Also, Maria was mentioned how the need of involve everyone to make this a fair transition for the circular economy. So I wanted to ask you, that you have the expertise on this, what is required to build this capacity that is lacking in developing and emerging countries?
So I think we have supported for a long time for improving waste management and recycling in the emerging and developing countries. For that, it was relatively clear. It is very important to have a national target and to make sure it is properly monitored. And also, in addition to that, you need to have a very good system of the collection of the recyclables and not waste for the proper management. So the collection system, including the legal system, is needed for that. And then you need to identify some sort of the market. When the recyclables are collected, what kind of market is there, and what kind of possible product can be generated from the recyclable. That was when we talked about waste management. But it's very hard to solve this issue, because the waste issue for the priorities was not so high. So, although a main central government set target or they develop national plan, it was just to say this is the area we want to do, but we don't have money. So in the future we will do, but not doing it. But plastic situation changed it. That is the first point related to first point. And then also the infrastructure development. Probably emerging economy getting the economic development rapidly better, and then plastic issue, considering, for example, ASEAN countries. ASEAN countries is very much tourism economy is very important. GDP ratio of the tourism is very high, more than 10%, sometimes nearly 20%. So how to ensure great tourism in the country is related to clean up the marine plastics. So that was one of the intention, to involve not only the recycling industry or waste management industry or informal sector, but involving citizens or service provider and the community. That was the different story. And then considering the market, it's only about plastics. That's why it's not about metals or so. You can consider what can be used. It's not like competition, right? If it is metal, like there's market price and the competition happens. But if it is plastic, how to utilize? So that was relatively better than normal waste management. That is why I think the plastic is used for the mainstreaming of this circularity issue. But then more important thing is not yet, I'd say, fully used is this business, academia, government collaboration. When Japan introduced recycling-oriented society or circular society policy, this collaboration was played very, very crucial role. And if you consider, like, for example, extended producer responsibility policy, which is to promote recycling policy on certain target, you need to have this very good collaboration between academia, business, and government. And those are the very weak point in the emerging and the developing economies. Some countries getting better. For example, like country like Thailand, rapidly getting rich, or like country like China is getting better. But maybe for the less developed economies, how to ensure such kind of multi-stakeholder collaboration, particularly in these three stakeholders, is very, very crucial.
Thank you so much for. Do you think like is this then a lack of capacity or a lack of interest for these governments to put like the targets? So a combination of both. We have also, you were mentioning how important it is to set national targets, but then involve also businesses. And also, Momona, you were showcasing how you involve business. You show like some local shows using reusable bags. So I wanted to also ask you about this, about how did you involve local business, if they were willing to do initiatives to reduce plastic waste. What is your experience with this?
So thank you for the question. After the declaration in 2003, in 2005, there was this new non-profit organization called Zero Waste Academy, who bridged municipality and the local businesses. So they supported local businesses to introduce these new, bulk sales and bringing your own bag to shopping, and they support these. And how to do this point system is that some of the materials separated in kamikatsu actually earns money because it has a high value as a material like metals and papers. The recycling companies will buy the material from the municipality, so there is an income in the municipality. So this gives the municipality give this income as a point to the residents through this system. And yes, that's the question for your. That's the answer for your question.
Then we also hear from Monty that you say that you are active in 9 countries. You have many initiatives around the world. Can you please tell us a bit more about what are the main advancements to rid the oceans of plastics? The main solutions that you see there, they are new.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Maria. So I think I'd like to highlight our use of artificial intelligence in particular. It's a very sort of hot topic at the moment, but it's something we've used really since the inception almost 12 years ago. Let me explain why it's so important for us to use this technology. Our foundation was to work in the Pacific Ocean, which is a really large space. The Great Pacific Garbage Patch is actually a space sized around 3 times the size of Japan. So it's not a small entity. And plastic is not always in one spot. I mean, and it can be partially submerged, it can be, very dispersed, and it's very expensive and hard to find. So we are very proud to develop an AI-enabled image capture and analysis system. We call it ADIS, the Automatic Debris Identification System. It's a UN Ocean Decade endorsed project. And basically what it does is we can outfit cameras on ships. So we work with commercial vessels such as shipping companies as Hyundai Glovis. We can work with individuals or private ships, and we also can outfit drones and aircraft. And we can run patterns and we collect data. In fact, I like to tell people we do far more than collect plastic. We actually collect data most of the time. And our data, frankly, and this reflects back to something that Dr. Hota said, data is actually the key input needed for policy design. So ADIS collects the data, the images of where plastic is, what type of plastic it is, if it's submerged in the ocean. We have a similar system which we call RIS, the River Identification or River Image Capturing System. We put that in cities, on bridges and buildings, which is actually vitally important not only for the design of our river interception solutions, but that is data which these cities, again, this reflects back to comments earlier, cities need information to create baselines and track progress, right? I mean, if you institute a EPR upstream policy, but you don't know what you were starting at, and you can't tell if it's having an impact or not, or if it's impacting certain segments of plastic pollution, it's really difficult to assess progress. And so we're really happy, even though we use it for our own internal purposes, to share that data with our municipal and local government partners. So I think really that's probably, I'll just pause there. We're just very happy about sort of our use and continued sort of growing accelerated use of AI and our image analysis system.
Thank you so much. You mentioned the local partnerships and how we also see how to cooperate with local business. And I wanted to ask you just this one final question, how we can involve consumers. For example, yesterday there was another panel discussion. They were saying when the solution comes from the consumer or when the data is gathered from the consumers, then the policy measure is well accepted at that country, at that at region or city. So I wanted to ask you if from your perspective, from the cooperation that we say government, consumers and academia, from the city that you have the experience in Kamikatsu and also for your project, how can we involve consumers in this transition?
I think we tend to think the consumer has a big role, but of course consumer plays certain role, but the more important thing, how to get involved consumer, is we need to collaborate properly with service provider or product developer, and then how to engage them for the alternative development. For example, when we consider like ozone layer related problem, like the main player was not like users of the let's say air conditioner or anything. The major player was the producer of the CFCs, and then making the alternative to the CFCs, and also users of the CFCs for the air conditioner and so on and so forth, and then properly developing, government properly developed with those alternative proposal from the businesses or industry, the certain clear policy. That's why the ozone layer related control regulation could agree, right? So that's why I'm saying it's very important who is the service provider, who is the producer influencing the consumer, and then those need to be changed.
Thank you. Any other ideas how to involve citizens, consumers, or?
Yes, from Kamikatsu involving residents, it was very important that the mayor declared zero waste. Many, I think 60% of the 80% of the residents say it's very tough to separate waste and reduce waste. But they say because the town declares and it's a rule, we just do it. So I believe that individual responsibility is very important, but it's sometimes very difficult to continue this effort. So having a good role and having a big ambition as a municipality will involve many residents to change their behaviors. On the other hand, in Kamikatsu, we attract many visitors annually. There are more than 10,000 visitors coming to Kamikatsu. And actually, there is a hotel next to the waste station, which has 4 guest rooms. And we provide zero waste action activities. We give study tours, and the guests will separate waste after they check out. So involving people outside of the town and providing experience will eventually give the opportunity to open their mind to change their mindsets.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Education, I think, is also key here. Have you, for example, shown your project in the schools or?
Sure. So our ocean solution is a little hard, of course, because it's in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. But the consumer interaction with that is that that plastic is recycled and is used by partners such as Kia Motors, and they make it into pieces of their EV car. So consumers sort of interact with the plastic once it's been taken out of the ocean. Our river projects are a lot easier to sort of engage local communities. And whether it's in Kingston, Jamaica, Bangkok, we often will have a community education center alongside, or they can come visit the interceptors, or they can often just see the interceptor from the bank of the river. So they can sort of see it visually and in action. And in many communities, again, we work with partners after the plastic's removed from the water. But in many communities, actually the community is responsible for doing some of the initial sorting. So we find sort of the not only firsthand involvement and recognition, but the actual action sort of really drives it home. The importance of reducing plastic, or the importance of handling it more responsibly.
Thank you so much. Now I think we have time for 1 or 2 questions. So I open the floor to the audience if there's any questions.
Thank you very much. My name is Takehiro Nakamura. I'm from the United Nations Environment Program. This session is talking about the plastic pollution. If the plastic used is continuously used and not enter the environment, it's not a pollution. So it's important that the plastic is continuously used, plastic is not entering the environment. And in order to really address the plastic pollution, we also would like to really know where the hotspots of the sources. Otherwise, at the end of the day, that the action needs to go to the hotspots or sources of pollution. And for that purpose, you need a lot of data and information. Maybe Europe and Japan, you have a lot of data to really identify the major sources. At the same time, if you go to the developing countries, we don't know where the major sources. So in order to really do that, UNEP is working with the European Commission. We have a project to develop the methodology to identify and quantify the sources of the plastic pollution entering the environment. And we are introducing, we call it the leakage factor, how much of the plastic used is leaking into the environment. So my question to all the speakers is, how do we really collect the data properly? And how do we really use the data collected for the development of the specific action or specific strategy to address the plastic pollution. So particularly where the data is scarce and the information is very scarce to really lead the data to the specific action and the specific strategy.
Sure, I can start. So first off, I should congratulate, we've had conversations with UNEP and the recognition of the data issue, particularly as it was in the context of the treaty, is something that we've had a few conversations around is really important. So you've identified the critical factor, because if you can't assess the size or magnitude of the problem to begin with, and then you can't track progress, it's really difficult to ensure that your upstream policy design is accurate. So as I mentioned earlier, we were solving the problem for ourselves. Like we were trying to understand, once plastic is in water, how can we, from afar, figure out how big is it? Is it submerged? Is it collectible? What type is it? Where is it? When does it come? So we developed our own piece of software in these cameras, which we deployed in the very cities and countries you mentioned where data doesn't exist. I mean, you go to Jakarta, Manila Bay, Rio. These are places that visually people can see pollution, but they don't know when it comes, where it comes. It's often not just plastic. It's often organics mixed in. It's a very complex problem. And so the software, as I said, has now been developed over decades. We can capture the image. We have a pretty good sense at very small sort of size magnitudes. We can tell you what it is. We can tell you if it's partially submerged on top. And then after that, we can start to determine, at least for our case, how to get it out of the water. But we offer that data back to the local governments. Like rivers are national resources. Like plastic is actually owned by the countries themselves or the local government units. So that information is actually their data. We're happy to share it back with them so that they can then use it to start to set baselines. We don't yet have examples yet where people have been measuring over time. But since we've been now in the water in a number of these countries and we'll be in a lot more cities for many years ahead, our data. And the other part about data, as I'm sure you know as an expert, you have to sort of what I'll call smooth it. Like you have to take into it can be a little bit dirty if you like. So there's a not only a collection and analysis piece, but there's like a methodology around sort of smoothing and sort of making it consistent so it's valid. Anyways, but that's my comment on the data collection.
Okay, thank you for the question. Kamikatsu Zero Waste Center's waste station is a good place to collect data. And Kamikatsu actually cooperate with companies such as Kao Corporation, Lion Corporation, and Suntree Holdings. These are the companies that Kamikatsu cooperate to collect their plastics as a material, and nowadays these companies are trying to develop plastic to plastic recycling. So we give these materials, and they will develop researching how to create a system in the society. So I think as for municipality, Kamikatsu, the waste station is a good place to collect data, and this will become an opportunity for the society to develop the system.
Yeah, we collaborated with OECD to conduct the what is the sources, and as you know, like OECD could develop the global plastic outlook and the regional plastic outlook for ASEAN +3, and they confirmed the land-based sources is very crucial. And then actually the different from the original researches was they pointed out the marine plastic pollution, compared to marine plastic pollution, still like a pollution to the river, lakes, and land near to the beach is more initially accumulate those pollution. So that's very important. But having looking at that from the modeling analysis, looking at the reality, this means the role of the central government or rural government is very important. And what is really happening from their lack of the waste management or the proper collection system, we need to identify that kind of data and information is very crucial to support them. And then lack of the actions from those local cities or rural cities, often too many work for the environmental issues at the same time. The person in charge of waste management of plastics also in charge of the environmental education and too busy to cover everything. And the central government policy is not clearly mentioned what to do for the local government. So I think we need to have a good collaboration with these local and the rural government for the data collection, what is the challenges they are facing to identify, and then support from the international organizations.
I think if I can add something, I think this is key to monitor the progress to the circular economy. We have, for example, some indicators at EU level, but still the granularity is still a challenge because it's not the same if we are talking about plastics, metals, vehicles, packaging. So still, I think there's room for improvement to have more data, monitor more the progress in this sense. Is there another question? No more questions? Okay, then I will thank you so much, the panelists, for the discussion. We have learned a lot. Your solutions are very interesting, and I hope we have more opportunities like this to exchange views, to exchange best practices, and how we can again collaborate with each other. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope you enjoyed the session.
I would also like to thank very much the two panels for this very insightful discussion and also for the positive way in which we are ending. I invite you to stay. We are going to show a short documentary related to the plastics and to the plastics negotiations in Geneva. You can also take it.
Its crystal clear waters and its coral museum. Every summer, this little corner of paradise alone consumes more than 150,000 single-use plastic items, bags, cups, cutlery, until the day the locals said stop.
Hi Katarina.
Welcome to our island.
I was just looking at the water. I can't see plastic.
Maybe you should take some glasses or microscope to check it. There is definitely plastic inside.
In 2018, citizens, NGOs and retailers signed a charter to commit to reducing their plastic consumption as much as possible.
So this is practical.
This restaurant has sourced more sustainable materials.
Mijenjaju se razmišljanja I u drugih ljudi I mi smo na neki način, ja bih rekla, početak velike promjene.
100 meters further along the quayside, gone are the bags and disposable cups at the island's grocery shop.
Ovo je moj dućan I to su naše platnene torbe. Povratna je. Fours lying without plastic. Really, it suggests that we are trying to be without plastic and especially without single-use plastic.
6 summers later, several tons of waste have probably been prevented, but plastic has not yet disappeared.
We do a lot of efforts and there is no end to that, but it doesn't mean that we should stop trying. We have to reduce our plastic fingerprint, like they say, because it's our planet, it's our survival.
The European Union was a pioneer back banning certain single-use plastic items as of 2021. Since then, data has shown a drop in coastal pollution. But back on the Croatian mainland, I still saw quite a few in the pretty town of Trogir.
We see you have sustainable spoons, not plastic, not anymore.
The problem is that these items can take centuries to decompose, and that doesn't even mean they disappear. According to one study, plastic particles are found inside half of the fish here in the Adriatic Sea.
80% of this plastic that we can find on the beach, it comes from land. That is single-use plastic. In the nature, it decomposes on smaller pieces and it becomes microplastic. So marine organisms take like food, then feed also the fish. So that is a food chain, and in the end, we also eat plastic. We need to rid of single-use plastic.
The town of Trogir has decided to tackle this plastic problem. It has launched an action plan with the support of the NGO Sunsi.
Prije 3 godine smo pokrenuli projekt odvajanja plastike. Također prikupljamo plastiku na kućnom pragu od građana. Isto tako otvorili smo reciklažno dvorište gdje smo povećali preko 3 puta po skupljanju odvojeno plastike u zadnje 3 godine i jako dobre rezultate.
The city has also set an example by banning single-use plastic from all municipal institutions.
I calculated that we used 2 tons of plastic and we reduced single-use plastic for 2 tons. I was shocked. I couldn't believe it that it's such a big number for such a small city.
The next step is to reduce its consumption in public spaces by offering lower rent to plastic-free restaurants.
We've seen that some ice cream shops are still using single-use plastics. Can you do something? Potičemo i naravno država tu radi s tim, naravno ima neodgovornih pojedinaca koji se sporije prilagođavaju sustavu.
More recently, the European Union adopted a series of other policies to improve the recyclability of our everyday packaging, or to limit the leakage of plastic pellets during maritime transport. A new European Ocean Pact was also unveiled at the United Nations Ocean Conference in Nice. In this area that is open to the public, plastic pollution was a central theme. In the EU pavilion, this digital twin of the ocean combines European data to simulate the impact of our actions.
On va pouvoir émettre du plastique virtuel à partir de Nice pour regarder un petit peu sa propagation dans la Méditerranée. Et on peut remonter aussi dans le passé et donc voir l'origine du plastique. Si je réduis de 50% des rivières et du côtier, on va réduire de 10 tonnes la pollution plastique durant une simulation de 2 ans.
Ce qui pourrait arriver en cas de traité international.
Exactement.
The draft of a future binding agreement was one of the hot topics in the official delegation zone.
Si c'est des pays, c'est ici que les pays font des annonces pour améliorer la santé des océans dans le cadre de l'accord mondial pour la biodiversité, protéger 30% des océans d'ici à 2030. C'est une standard de l'environnement qu'on a pris un traité qui prenne en compte toute la durée de vie.
Negotiations on the treaty will resume in August in Geneva. While some countries want to focus on waste treatment, the EU and 95 countries have launched a Nice wake-up call for the agreement to really reduce plastic production and harmful molecules.
It's not against plastic as such, but it's against how to prevent this from pollution. So that is one important thing, to actually have the whole life cycle of plastic, not only the recycling part, but also from the start.
How are the negotiations going?
I think they're going fine. Of course, these multilateral negotiations are difficult, always, but for us as Europeans, it's important to get the treaty, and we will try to encourage and lead on that.
Secretary General, do you think we can reach an agreement on plastic?
You're asking the wrong person. I'm an optimist. Of course, I will reiterate the call to all the stakeholders to get together. We share the same objective. We just need to find a way to move forward and address the concern.
On ne fasse pas un traité pour le plaisir de faire un traité. Il faut que ça soit un traité avec des engagements forts. Le plastique est en train de tout polluer, la nature et même le corps humain.
The oceans need action now, and that is urgent. And I think being here in Nice also helps to have seized this momentum. It's moving forward, and I'm quite hopeful that we will get an agreement in August.
That's the end of this episode. See you in September on the road to a deplasticized world.
Joko aloitetaan? Should we start? It is the well-kept secret that Japan has so much forest.
eller det her blir jo litt så, den kan jo stå sånn på en måte, bare med klokke sånn. Dere kan ikke ta min da, jeg må bruke den til stream, men sånn for eksempel. Er det...
Nei, det er bedre å ha den. Bare legge frem den. Hallo. Ja, good. Sorry da. Ja. Hvordan setter vi denne her til å synes, så den ikke stoppeklokke?
det tror jeg ikke.
Fjerne de to.
Ja, fjerne oss. Vi kan ikke ha mange. Du kan bare ha én etterpå når dere er ferdig der, for da får du ekstra lønn på slutten, ikke sant?
Ja, det er en uke, og så er det...
Nå bruker du...
Jeg tror ikke vi Kan du fjerne de to?
Yes, I can test. Yes, 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. 1 2 1 2. Shake shake shake. Shake shake shake. 1 2 1 2. Testing microphone. Testing microphone. Shake 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 shake. 1 2 1 2. It's okay. Arigato.
Sånn, nydelig. Information. Er det riktig slide? Nei, der har du alle fire.
Kan du kopiere den ned til den siste også?
Mangler Expo, du ser her, mangler den, tror jeg. Exakt, her, ja.
Bare kopier den første.
Det er bare å kopiere den første. Slide 2, flytt. Så da har vi roundup.
Jeg har 5 sjokolader, så jeg er ikke nok til alle i panelet. Så